Hi, my name is Emily Carter, and I'm 30 years old. I've spent most of my adult life crafting perfect days for other people. That's what I do. I'm a wedding planner florals, lighting, dress fittings, tantrums, timelines, Pinterest boards, and all. But nothing prepared me for the moment I stood in the corner of my sister's wedding, clutching my heart like it might fall out of my chest. All I wanted was a small gesture. One moment, one thread of kindness from the girl who used to braid my hair and sleep in my bed during thunderstorms. Instead, I got a smile so fake it could have been glued on. Let me take you back 2 years. Jessica, my younger sister by 2 years, was the crown jewel of our family, blonde, petite, bubbly. She's the kind of person who signs her emails with heart emojis and says things like, "I'm just vibing with the universe right now." I had just gone through the worst breakup of my life. My ex, after 7 years together, had packed up his apartment and moved in with a woman he met at a networking brunch. I thought we were planning a proposal. Turns out, he was planning an exit. Jessica's wedding came 3 weeks later. I almost didn't go. I cried the entire drive to the venue and had to redo my mascara in the parking lot twice. But I went. I showed up. Because that's what you do when you love someone, even when you're breaking. The reception was in full swing. Everyone was tipsy and glowing. String lights swaying above a rustic barn. Candles floating in mason jars. She looked stunning. No denying it. Gown imported from Paris. Flowers flown in from Ecuador. And me, I felt like an unpaid extra in the movie of her life. I pulled her aside during the reception. Just a quiet moment behind the tent. "Jess, could you maybe toss the bouquet my way when the time comes? Symbolic. For hope." She blinked, lips tight. "I'm not actually tossing it. It's custom made. Costs like $600. I want to preserve it." I smiled. "Tight. Tried again. Could I maybe just hold it for a photo, just for a post or something?" She tilted her head. That signature influencer smile stretching across her face. Let's not make this about you. Okay." It wasn't even the words. It was the tone. Like I was a burden on her aesthetic. I walked away. Didn't bring it up again. I kept it buried so deep I forgot it hurt until it came back around. But we'll get to that. Before I continue, if you've ever had someone hijack your moment, if you've been dismissed, made to feel small, or told to step aside, on your day, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Because this story, it's for all of us who were told to be gracious one too many minutes. Setting the stage. Who we really were. Jessica was the golden child, always had been. Even our mom Susan would say things like, "Jessica just has that sparkle. She draws people in." Meanwhile, I was the responsible one. The one who did the dishes. The one who helped Dad sort medical bills when he got sick. I was reliable, not sparkly. Jessica was homecoming queen. I got a part-time job at 15 to help pay for school supplies. She posted aesthetic skincare routines and Sunday brunch photos. I built a wedding planning business from the ground up. Working 70-hour weeks while living on ramen and black coffee, I had clients in Dallas, Houston, even New Orleans. But it was never enough to change the way Mom saw us. Jessica was the one you brag about. I was the one you called when you needed to move furniture. Still, I never competed. I genuinely believed that one day she'd see me too. Not just as her older sister, but as someone worthy of love, of space, of celebration. Then came Josh. Enter a good man in a complicated world. I met Josh at one of my own weddings. Actually, not mine, my client's. He was the groom's cousin, managing the live band. We started talking backstage during a rehearsal. And he made me laugh so hard I spilled champagne on my tablet. He helped me clean it up, and then helped me fix the lighting issue the venue was having without me even asking. We had our first date 2 nights later. He didn't try to impress me. He noticed me. The kind of noticing that makes your chest hurt because you're not used to it. We dated for a year, then moved in together. He proposed in our backyard with fireflies blinking around us. I said yes before he finished the sentence. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, not as Jessica's sister, not as the stable one, but as Emily, a woman who had built something from nothing, who knew the weight of silence and still chose love anyway. Back to the phone call that changed everything 3 days before the wedding. I was finalizing my seating chart when my phone lit up. Jessica. Hey, so I was thinking, I've got news, big news. I want to announce it at your reception. I paused. What kind of announcement? I'm pregnant. I blinked. Wow, congratulations, Jess. But why at my wedding? It'll be so magical. Everyone will already be there. Plus, I might get a sponsored reel with Mom Glow if we time it right. I stood frozen. No, Jess. No. This is my wedding. You can announce it another time. Silence. Emily. Are you seriously saying no to this? I thought we were family. I was family at your wedding. Remember, you couldn't even let me hold your bouquet for one photo. Click. 30 minutes later, my mother called. Emily. Really, are you going to hold a grudge over a bouquet Jessica's carrying the first grandchild? It would mean the world to the family. I looked down at my color-coded wedding binder, my guest list, my flower budget, the table I personally built for the dessert station. It means the world to me, Mom. And she's not turning it into her stage. She huffed. You're being childish. I didn't reply. But something in me snapped back into place. The spine I thought I'd lost came home. This wasn't about revenge, not yet. This was about boundaries. The days leading up to my wedding were meant to be sacred. I had carved out this window of time to exist in a bubble, no emails, no spreadsheets, no timelines. Just late-night painting with Josh and quiet meals under our backyard string lights. Instead, I spent those nights with my phone on silent, my jaw clenched, and my hands shaking every time I opened a new text from my mother. She didn't stop. Voice notes dripping with disappointment, subtle guilt trips disguised as concern. You know your father would have wanted the family to stay close. She said in one, "Is this really the hill you want to die on?" she asked in another, as if the hill wasn't my wedding. I stayed polite. I stayed civil, but internally, I was retreating to a familiar place, a quiet, cautious space I hadn't visited since childhood. The one where I dimmed myself so others wouldn't feel threatened. Where I shrunk my joy to make space for someone else's spotlight. But this time, something felt different, older, less forgiving. This was my wedding, my name on the invitation, my heart in the planning, and I wasn't going to let it get hijacked. The morning before the wedding, my best friend Lindsay arrived from Denver. We'd been close since college. She was the kind of woman who could read my silence like a headline. "I saw your face on the porch," she said after hugging me tight. "Is it still about Jessica?" I nodded. "She's coming," I said flatly. "Of course she is. She wouldn't miss a chance to center herself." I laughed bitterly. "I think she's planning something." Lindsay tilted her head. "Then we prepare." And prepare we did. Lindsay took over managing the vendor flow. My colleague Avery handled guest logistics and overflow seating. I triple-checked the AV setup, asked the DJ to run everything through me or Josh directly. And most importantly, I had a mic cutoff trigger pre-programmed into the soundboard, just in case. I felt paranoid, controlling, but oddly empowered. For the first time in years, I was allowing myself to anticipate bad behavior and proactively protect myself. It didn't make me cold. It made me awake. Jessica arrived the morning of the wedding, 3 hours late for the welcome brunch. Her dress was beautiful. Of course, a blush floral satin that toe-danced the line between spring chic and bridesmaid adjacent. Her smile was all teeth. And trailing behind her was her husband, Toby, looking as if he'd rather be anywhere else. He gave me a quick, genuine hug and whispered, "Hang in there," while Jessica immediately started directing a hired photographer to get shots of her holding the brunch pastries like she was on a magazine shoot. I noticed she didn't speak to any of my vendors, just posed, performed. At the rehearsal dinner, she offered a toast. I held my breath. Emily, she began, has always been consistent, reliable, quiet, a little too serious. Maybe. The room chuckled. I did not. But now she's found someone who sees her, who sees the magic the rest of us maybe missed. There it was. A backhand wrapped in glitter. Josh squeezed my knee under the table. Let it go, he whispered. I tried. But that old familiar ache had started again, the one where I questioned whether I really belonged in the narrative of my own life. Later that night, I found Lindsay and Avery whispering near the catering tent. She asked about the DJ queue. Avery said, looking concerned, wanted to know when open mic would start. I froze. She's planning a moment. I said, like an actual staged moment. Lindsay nodded. We have a backup plan, but you need to decide, are you going to warn her or let her walk into it blind? I stared out over the dance floor, twinkle lights reflecting in the polished wood, the memory of that damn bouquet rising like smoke. She didn't warn me, I said quietly. She just smiled and shut the door. The morning of the wedding was humid, bright and alive with sound, birds, wind chimes, laughter. My bridal suite buzzed with energy, bridesmaids zipping dresses, curling hair, clinking glasses of Prosecco. Jessica arrived late again, this time with an entourage. A videographer, a makeup touch-up artist, and most tellingly a branded gift bag from Mom Glow peeking from her tote. Lindsay saw it too. She's doing it, she murmured. She's actually going to do it. Still, I kept calm, makeup done, hair pinned, dress zipped. The photographer captured the moments, my mom pretending we were close, my hand clasped with Josh's behind the barn as we read our vows privately, crying into each other's shoulders. And then the ceremony. Simple, elegant, full of meaning. When I walked down that aisle and saw Josh, tears in his eyes, waiting for me, I forgot all about Jessica. For 30 minutes, I forgot everything. We were married, we kissed, guests cheered, champagne popped, music began, and then came the reception. This was where the control slipped. Jessica didn't sit at her assigned table. She floated, circling, mingling, whispering to certain guests. I watched her slip something to the DJ assistant, watched her lean into the camera for perfectly staged moments with her hands subtly resting on her stomach. No one else noticed, but I did. And then, as Josh and I were preparing for our first dance, the music cut. The mic screeched lightly. My heart dropped. Jessica's voice rang out, "Hi everyone, before the newlyweds dance, I just have one tiny announcement." I turned my head, locking eyes with her across the room. My mother stood near her, nodding. Toby looked down at his shoes. The guests all turned toward the mic. Phones lifted. She smiled wider. Baby Hall is on the way. The crowd gasped. Cheers erupted. People clapped. Some stood. Jessica cradled her barely there bump like a reality show contestant doing a gender reveal. The camera lights flashed. But all I heard was nothing. Just the sound of years of silence and compromise crashing against the wall I had built to keep myself whole. Jessica had done it again. She'd turned my life into a set piece for her show. And this time, I wasn't going to let it end on her cue. I didn't move at first. I stood frozen under a cascade of soft string lights, the delicate beating of my wedding gown catching the shimmer like stars. I could hear the collective gasp ripple through the crowd like a wave brushing glass. The air itself thickened. Jessica's voice still echoed in the mic, giddy and triumphant, as if she had just scored the finale rose on The Bachelorette. Baby Hall is on the way, she had said. And it was done with that one sentence. She'd shattered the atmosphere, hijacked the rhythm, rewritten the narrative to include herself at the center, again. Always again. I saw the phones rise, hundreds of lenses pointed not at me, not at Josh, but at Jessica, hands clasped over her stomach, her white pink floral dress flowing like she had planned every detail down to the wind's timing. And I knew she had. I watched as the room tilted in her direction. Guests leaning in, murmurs rising, people standing to applaud this beautiful moment. I could already hear it. What a touching twist. She's glowing. What timing. Huh. And that's when I felt it. Not rage, not grief, but something deeper. A quiet, heavy clarity. I looked toward the DJ booth, where Avery was already watching me. Our eyes locked. She gave me a single nod, hand resting on the digital mixer. I walked slow, measured across the dance floor. I passed my mother, who gave me that tight-lipped, "Don't make a scene" look. I passed Toby, who looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. And then I reached the sound table. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't scream, I simply leaned in and said, "Cut her mic." Avery's finger moved, and just like that silence, Jessica blinked, her lips still moving. But nothing came out. The crowd hesitated, unsure whether to laugh, clap, or panic. The silence spread like wildfire, uncomfortable, absolute, authoritative. Jessica glanced at the mic, tapped it twice, confused. Then she looked at me. I met her eyes. And for the first time in our lives, I didn't look away. The tension was delicious, painful, and fully mine. I stepped forward, took the second mic from the side table, and with a steady breath, I spoke. This moment right here was meant for something else. For a first dance. For a couple that just promised to build a life together. For joy that wasn't conditional on anyone else's news. I turned to Jessica. "I'm happy for you, Jess. I really am. But this isn't your stage. Not today." Then I smiled, small, precise, and walked back to Josh. He extended his hand, his face soft with a mix of admiration and something that looked a lot like pride. We began our first dance to a song we'd chosen together months ago, "You Are the Reason." And this time, every eye in the room turned to us. Not out of obligation, but because, for once, I had claimed my rightful place. Later, as people slowly returned to their seats, I saw Jessica standing off to the side, her expression unreadable, my mother at her side, mouth pressed into a thin line. The DJ faded into the next set. The moment had passed, but the aftershocks hadn't. I knew this wasn't over. What I didn't know was that it had just begun. As the evening wore on, whispers circled. Guests approached me and Josh with hugs, smiles, affirmations. That was incredibly classy. One said, "I've never seen someone reclaim a moment like that," said another. Even our officiant shook my hand and said, "That was one of the most graceful power moves I've ever witnessed." But Jessica didn't say a word. She stayed in the corner for the rest of the night, arms crossed, smiling only when someone pointed a camera in her direction. When I looked her way, she looked through me. No apology, no explanation. Just silence, but not the kind I could respect. The kind that seethed. Avery caught up to me before I left for the night. "I caught all of it," she whispered, flashing her phone. "Every second. From the mic hijack to your speech. You want me to send it?" I hesitated. "I'm not trying to start a war." "You didn't. She did. You just finished a scene she didn't expect you to direct." I smiled. "Send it to me." That night, back at our hotel suite, Josh and I collapsed onto the bed in full wedding attire. My veil hung from the ceiling fan, my heels abandoned by the door. He pulled me into his arms. And for a while, we didn't speak. Just laid there in the kind of silence that soothes, not stings. Eventually, I said, "Did I go too far?" He shook his head. "You did what needed to be done. For once. You didn't let her write your story." And that line stuck with me, because that's exactly what it felt like I had taken back the pen. What happened next, though, would prove that reclaiming power comes with a price. Because 24 hours later, the video went viral. The post had been simple. Avery uploaded a 45-second reel titled, "When Your Sister Uses Your Wedding for a Baby Announcement," and you shut it down gracefully. No hashtags, no names, just raw footage and reality. By the next morning, it had over 300,000 views. And then came the flood. Some commenters praised the Boundary Queen energy. Others dissected Jessica's dress, her expressions, her motives. Wedding TikTok got hold of it. And suddenly, people were duetting it, reenacting the scene, narrating it with dramatic voiceovers. Jessica, unintentionally, became the face of event hijackers. And the irony, she had filmed the entire moment with a brand photographer in tow, footage she was planning to pitch to MomGlow as part of her Motherhood Journey series. MomGlow ghosted her. Avery sent me a screenshot of the brand's quiet statement, "We celebrate genuine, respectful moments. We will not be pursuing any partnerships from the aforementioned event." Jessica's curated image cracked, not shattered, but the hairline fractures were there. And then came the call from my mother. The call came just after noon the next day. I was still in my hotel robe, half asleep, sipping lukewarm coffee while scrolling through the avalanche of comments that had now grown into full-fledged think pieces. Titles ranged from "Respecting Boundaries at Family Events" to "How to Shut Down a Narcissistic Sibling with Class." I hadn't shared the video myself. Hadn't even commented, but I didn't have to. The internet had already decided who was wrong and who had finally, gloriously, said enough. My phone buzzed, and the caller ID read Mom. I hesitated, then answered. "You humiliated her." She said, "No hello, no breath, just a direct shot to the chest." I stayed quiet. She cried all night. She said she can't even go online without people calling her selfish. Do you think that's what family does to each other? I closed my eyes, choosing every word like glass. Mom. She used my wedding as a marketing opportunity. She planned it. She coordinated with a brand. She brought a videographer. She announced a pregnancy with full knowledge that I asked her not to. She's pregnant. Emily. She was excited. She was strategic. And I'm not going to apologize for defending the only day in my adult life that was supposed to be about me. There was a long pause. She says you've always resented her. That made me laugh. Not a joyful laugh, a sharp, tired, bitter one. No. Mom. I didn't resent her. I rearranged myself around her so many times I forgot what my own shape looked like. I was the quiet one, the helper, the one who understood. And every time I asked for something small, some sliver of grace, she told me I was ruining her aesthetic. She made me feel invisible, until I decided I wouldn't be anymore. Another pause. This one longer. And then, quietly. You sound different. I am. And I hung up. I expected to feel triumphant, empowered, but I didn't. Not exactly. I felt like I was walking through a storm I hadn't summoned but now had to navigate every gust, a reminder of how complicated freedom can be. Because yes, I had reclaimed my voice, but I had also unearthed things in my family that would never go back to how they were. And somewhere inside that truth was a grief I hadn't named yet. Jessica didn't call, but Toby did. "Hey," he said softly, voice full of static and sympathy. "I just wanted to say, I saw what you did, and I saw what she did, and you weren't wrong." "Thank you," I said, genuinely startled. She's spiraling a bit. Losing that deal hit her hard. But more than that, I think she's realizing that people saw through the performance for the first time. I didn't answer. I didn't know how to. "She's not used to consequences," he added. "She's used to applause." It stayed with me the way he said applause, like it was a drug she'd been chasing her whole life. Maybe we both had, in different ways. She, by commanding every stage; me, by standing so far backstage I'd practically dissolved. The video passed 2 million views, then 3. People began tagging me directly, some praising me. Others prying for more drama. Someone found Jessica's influencer page and flooded the comment. She turned them off. She posted a story that said, "People can be cruel," with a photo of her ultrasound and a sad emoji. And for the first time, the likes were scarce. Her magic trick had failed. And somehow, I was still the one feeling twisted inside. Josh noticed. "You're doing that thing," he said one night while we ate takeout on the couch. Legs tangled. "What thing?" "Where you punish yourself for other people's behavior." I didn't answer, because he wasn't wrong. He reached for my hand. "You didn't humiliate her. You just didn't let her humiliate you. There's a difference. And you're allowed to be the main character of your own life." I nodded, slowly. But there was something else pulling at me. A memory. Not of the wedding, but of a Tuesday afternoon 12 years ago. When Jessica had called me from a gas station an hour outside of town, crying because she ran out of gas on her way to a modeling audition. I had left class, driven 2 hours in traffic, and brought her a can of fuel and a burger because she hadn't eaten. She didn't thank me, just reapplied her lipstick and drove off. And I had thought that was love. I had thought that was what sisters do. Now I wondered how many versions of myself had I shed to keep her glowing. The next day, Lindsay came by with coffee and a copy of the New York Times style section. "You're in it," she grinned. "What?" She tossed the paper onto the counter. There it was. "When boundaries go viral, the wedding that said no to the hijack culture." I stared. "This is insane." "No, this is overdue," Lindsay said. "And don't look now, but Mom Glow messaged you." "What?" "They want to do a feature on planning with boundaries, a campaign about women reclaiming their space in major life events." I laughed. "So now I'm the face of shutting things down." "You're the face of protecting peace, which is way more marketable than being a people pleaser." Still, the irony wasn't lost on me. I hadn't set out to make a statement. I hadn't asked to be viral. I had just finally drawn a line. And now, somehow, people were seeing it not as a petty act of vengeance, but as a blueprint. That night, Jessica finally broke the silence. She sent me a card in the mail. No envelope, just the card. Front a floral print. Inside, I was just trying to share good news. "I didn't mean to hurt you." No apology, no accountability, just that. I placed it on the counter, where it stayed for days, untouched. Josh eventually asked, "Do you want to respond?" I thought about it. About all the years I had written back, called first, forgiven before anyone asked. About how I'd been taught that being good meant being the first to fold. And for the first time, I said, "No, I think silence is my answer." But silence wasn't the end of it. Because a week later, Mom showed up unannounced at our house. It was a Saturday morning when she showed up. No text, no warning, just the sound of my doorbell echoing through the kitchen like a ghost of childhood. Josh had gone out to run errands. I was alone, barefoot in sweatpants, sipping black tea and finally feeling like the storm had passed. I didn't even check the peephole. I opened the door and saw my mother standing there, hair pulled back too tightly. Sunglasses she didn't need. A look I knew all too well. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She didn't sit. She walked slowly around the room like she was inspecting a museum exhibit. Her eyes landed on our wedding photo framed on the mantel, then darted to the stack of newspapers that still featured headlines from the video. "You know, I raised 2 daughters," she said, still not looking at me. "I never imagined the world would turn them against each other." That's when I realized she hadn't come to talk. She'd come to restore her illusion of control. "You didn't turn us against each other," I said, calm but firm. "You just never noticed that we weren't on equal footing to begin with." She finally faced me. "I always tried to make sure you both had what you needed." I nodded. Jessica had attention. I needed boundaries. Guess which one got prioritized? She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. The silence between us filled with years of unspoken truths. "You always called her sparkling. You always told me I was reliable." Do you know what that does to a child? Her voice cracked slightly. I didn't mean it like that. I know, but you did it anyway. She finally sat down, slowly, like her body weighed more than she could carry. I just didn't want drama. I didn't want the family to fall apart. It's not drama to protect yourself. And the family didn't fall apart because I drew a line. It fell apart because no one else ever did. She was quiet. Jessica's not a villain, Mom. She's a product of applause, of indulgence, of never being told no. You didn't create a monster, but you helped build the stage she performs on. For the first time, her eyes welled with something real, not performative, not defensive, just tired, complicated truth. I was afraid, she whispered, that if I told her no, she'd turn on me. And what did you think would happen if you kept telling me to stay quiet? Her shoulders slumped. The mask cracked. I'm sorry, she said. Just 2 words. But they didn't bounce off the walls like hollow echoes. They landed. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to start something. I made us tea. We didn't talk much after that. She left 2 hours later. And I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I didn't spiral. I just stood in the kitchen, looking at the wedding photo again. At the way Josh held me like I mattered. Like my space in the frame wasn't borrowed, but earned. That week, I got a package in the mail. No return address, but I knew it was from Jessica. Inside was the bouquet from her wedding, preserved, pressed, tied with a silk ribbon. There was a note. I kept this perfect for 2 years. For what I thought having something beautiful meant, I had to protect it. But now I think real beauty isn't about keeping things untouched. It's about knowing when to let go. No apology, but a shift, a crack in the script. I didn't text her, didn't call. I just placed the bouquet in my office. A reminder not of her, but of me. The version of me that asked for one picture and didn't get it. And the version who, 2 years later, got something better, her voice back. Weeks passed. The video faded from trending tabs. Jessica slowly reopened her comments, but her content changed. Less curated, more real. Maybe the internet humbled her. Maybe she humbled herself. I didn't need to know, because this was never about destroying her. It was about finally refusing to disappear. Josh and I went on our honeymoon to Marfa, slept in a tiny trailer under the stars, ate pie from a roadside diner, talked about nothing and everything. One night, I asked him if he thought people ever really change. He said, only when they lose the thing they thought defined them. I asked him what defined me. He smiled. Your ability to stay soft in a world that tried to make you small. I think that's what this story really is. Not a revenge tale. Not a takedown. But a reclamation. Of space, of narrative, of dignity. People ask me now, do you regret going viral? No. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is finally speak softly and mean it. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not applause or punishment. It's peace. The kind you earn. The kind you protect. The kind you no longer apologize for taking up space inside. And if I could go back, knowing everything, the fallout, the backlash, the silence, I would still cut the mic. Every single time.